These mobs are way too big. But are they? They probably are. Terraria is a game that shows the world in a 2D space, zoomed out of your character, which makes things seem pretty small. However, there are certain things in Terraria that have their sizes based on real life, like the player. And if that's the case, then what about other things in Terraria, like the mobs? What if we compare their sizes in 3D? What would they look like in real life? How large would they actually be? I'm jpallgraphic, and this is Illustrating Terraria Mobs, Part 3. The mobs that will be illustrated in today's video are Terraria's Hornets, measured, compared, and illustrated in a 2D and 3D view. Now, how do we measure things in Terraria? Well, there's a certain accessory dropped from the only flying mammal in Terraria, the depth meter. It measures the depth of the player, the vertical height, with its given units in feet. When you go up or down one block, the height difference between one block and the next is 2 feet. That's the measurement of one block. For more accurate measurements, one block is 8 pixels in width and height, so for calculating the measurement of 1 pixel, it requires dividing 2 feet by 8, which is 3 inches. Now with that out of the way, let's get this party started. Now, Terraria's Hornets have many variations. If we include the Moss Hornet, there are 23 variations with 7 species, with 3 size variations for the pre-hard mode Hornets and 5 for the Moss Hornet. Measuring the medium-sized Hornets is pretty simple. Its length is around 4 feet or 1.22 meters. Note that these only apply to these given species of Hornets. Some, like the leafy, spiky, and stingy Hornets, may look bigger or longer, but those are fashion pixels. There are 2 exemptions, larger than the previous Hornets. Fatty Hornet, with a length of 4 foot 3 or 1.3 meters, and the Moss Hornet, with a length of 5 foot 6 or 1.67 meters. Now with that out of the way, we need to measure their size variations. Doing so requires digging deep into Terraria's code. The file npc.cs can help us find the NPC ID of the Hornet, in this case, the normal medium Hornet, which is 42. Now, the NPC ID of its size variations are -16 and -17, right next to each other. The only line of code that we have to focus on is this, which is the scale factor for these size variations. Basically, multiply the medium-sized Hornet with these values, and you get their size variations. But here's what's interesting. Different Hornet species have different size variations. I'm not going to show you all the calculations and measurements of these size variations, because I know you're only interested in the big one. In terms of length, it is the giant Moss Hornet, measuring around 6.6 feet or 2.01 meters in both width and length. Now, I measured other things as well, but for things to make sense, let us move on to the 2D comparison. This 2D view is meant to showcase the general size of the Hornets and compares them with elements similar or bigger in size. So here we are at heightcomparison.com, where I'll be comparing the sizes of Terraria's Hornets with real-life things. First of all, let us showcase Terraria's Hornets. Here we have the regular size Hornet, the large fatty Hornet, and the giant Moss Hornet. As you can see, here we have the 6-footer and the Terrarian. Now, the 6-footer seems to be almost around the same height as the giant Moss Hornet. And even the fatty Hornet and the regular size Hornet are definitely impressive in their size, especially their body parts. It seems like it could fit 6 human heads in this head, I guess. Anyway, comparing it to the tallest land animal, the giraffe, you could see that the Moss Hornet is almost or around the same size as the baby giraffe. And when comparing it to buildings, like a 1-story house or a 2-story house, of course, these things are considerably bigger, but if you compare it with its individual components, like the doors or the windows, then you wouldn't really want to see this outside, staring at your window. And just for the sake of it, here's a size comparison between Terraria's Hornets and the African bush elephant with a German Shepherd. And if you want to know the size of their stinger projectiles, it's this large. Look at it compared to this dog. It's generally around the same length as the German Shepherd. Now, we have an idea of their sizes and how big they are compared to real-life things in a 2D view. But what about a 3D view? Well, let's illustrate them. To showcase the size of Terraria's hornets in a 3D view, we first have to illustrate them. Doing so requires 6 simple steps. 1. Sketching. I sketched the form of the regular size hornet and the giant moss hornet. And because I want controversy, I basically just copied the pose of the reference, but gave it that authentic Terraria style. 2. Grayscale. I colored the hornets in grayscale, assigning different values to each body part. At the same time, I scaled and modified their forms to fit their unique design. 3. Details. I'm not really sure how useful this was. It was just an hour of me adding some strokes and texture on the hornets that weren't even clearly visible. Oh, and there's wing details. 4. Ground. This is a very important addition. A mossy, Terraria jungle inspired ground. These were detailed to make them look like they were necessary. 5. Color. Using the sprite as a reference, I colored the mobs and ground with different parts or segments painted in different hues. 6. Lighting and shadows. With the color incorporated into the hornets, I added lighting and shadows, basing it on the lighting of this reference. At the same time, I also included number 7, detail. This time, I mean it. For the moss hornet, I transformed its body into moss. Initially, the moss on the moss hornet seemed way too thin, but eventually, I slowly incorporated a thicker, lush mossy coverage covering the hornet's body. As for the regular hornet, lighting was mainly applied with 8 refinements and additions, like wing detail, body proportion fixes, some legs, and finally, some cast shadows. This illustration showcases the true size of Terraria's hornets. They may look cute, but I don't think you would want massive organic drones with German Shepherd-sized Stinger missiles charging towards you. Being insects, one question seems to linger. Can these creatures actually fly? If you want to see me compare and illustrate the sizes of Terraria's mobs, click this video over here, or this playlist over here.